positions in the country through the political transitions. Now, the only way, if you're talking about the way to settlement in Syria, it's surely not one of those forceful scenarios, but Geneva II process.
And let me just go back to that point. If information comes out that we're hearing, that America says it's got this information that proves that the Assad regime was behind it, if it is released tomorrow, how would Russia change its tune here? It would listen, it would take that information and act accordingly, yeah?
It should be discussed in the Security Council. One will be skeptical about Security Council resolution on that, but it is either Security Council or might is right principle.
I think it's really important here, excuse me for interrupting, to not discuss so much the what ifs, but the we haves, and we have no proof. So it's surprising to me that Sunny and most of the mainstream media can report and talk about this and discuss the situation in Syria as if it's already been proven. This is fact. And they're basically, a lot of the press is copying and pasting these statements that we're hearing from very high-ranking officials in the West. Like I said, we heard from William Hague, UK Foreign Secretary, saying that they do believe this is a chemical attack by the Assad regime. US Vice President Joe Biden, there's no doubt who is responsible for this heinous use of chemical weapons in Syria. Chuck Hagel, US Defense Secretary, I think that intelligence will conclude that the government of Syria was responsible. Are we going to see this evidence, or are we going to see it after the fact that...
As Colin Powell's stunt in the Security Council showed 10 years ago, seeing the evidence doesn't mean to have it.
And of course, one of the big proponents here going along with it, William Hague, UK's foreign minister, he's taken a hard line on this from the start. He was quick to react, wasn't he, to counter criticism that there are similarities in the build-up to the war in Iraq, WMD. We've got a clip of him talking about that. Let's take a quick listen.
This is a very different situation from anything that happened over Iraq. I think we have to be clear about this. The Assad regime acknowledges it has chemical weapons. There are previous instances over the last year when we believe it's used chemical weapons. There is no plausible alternative explanation for this other than that they have used chemical weapons. It is a quite different situation from Iraq, an entirely different situation, and our government is going about it in an entirely different way. So there is no comparison between this and Iraq. This is where a crime against humanity has been committed, and there can be no argument about that.
Marcus Papadopoulos, no similarities at all?
Oh, I think there are similarities. Let's have a look at the track record over the last 20 years of the West in the wars it's fought. In Kosovo, the West claimed 100,000 Kosovan Albanians had been murdered by the Serbs. Lie. Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. Lie. Libya, tens of thousands of civilians slaughtered by Colonel Gaddafi's forces. A lie. And now with Syria, what the Western public has been subjected to over the last 2 years, are heinous stories that the Syrian government and the Syrian armed forces, the only legitimate groups in Syria, have been slaughtering women, men and children. That's completely uncorroborated. It's all about pursuing geostrategic objectives. The ambition is to simply ensure Western political dominance in the Middle East. Syria is the one remaining country which will not bow to the West. Syria will not bow to the West. That's why it's being
I'm sorry,
persecuted.
but this is just ridiculous.
If Syria
Can I just point out one thing?
Iran will be next. It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. You and the way
it is completely ridiculous. Let me get a word in edgeways, please.
It's time the British
let me get a word in edgeways, please.
Listen. It's time the British public...
I think it's important to point out that Libya... I think it's important to point out...
Marcus, you've made your point, sir. Let Sunny have his word now, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think anyone can... In fact, there are lots of videos which have been uploaded by Syrian doctors as well as in hospitals. There was a video published by ITV News the other day which showed clear examples of kids talking while they were suffering from an attack of a chemical weapon. I mean, this idea that this gentleman is saying that there is no, this is a lie about WMDs. There is a clear difference. Now we have video evidence which has been published to YouTube, and it's also been published and independently corroborated in the New York Times.
But it hasn't
let me just finish my point, please. Let me just finish my point. The video has been there's been loads of videos published showing that these kids have had chemical attacks on them.
Okay, look, we've only got a couple of...
You've seen pictures of...
Independent
We have seen
investigation.
pictures-
That is what is
we have
required.
seen pictures
Stop
and videos
citing
of chemical weapon
Stop
attacks.
citing opposition. Stop citing opposition activists. We need to approach
Look, let's
this
cite US and UK officials that say they have the evidence. Why can't we see it?
Way.
Videos of
Right,
children
we
are
should
not
see
enough.
the evidence. You're
Guys,
completely right.
Guys, we've only got a couple of...
No, you're right that
we've only got a short amount of time left.
Can
I want to
this
ask
guy
you about...
just shut up?
I want to ask you about, in our
Can this
final
guy
minute...
just shut up for 1 second so I can get a word in? I just want to make my point about chemical weapons, and he can spout
Briefly.
all the nonsense about the Syrian government he wants to. Listen, the fact of the matter is that we have seen proper video evidence and we have seen photographic evidence of children on the after effects of chemical weapon attacks. There have been lots of videos posted about showing sarin and the effects of sarin. Now the key question here is not whether the chemical weapons have been used. The key question here is who used them. And that's the thing that the UN inspectors are now trying to find out in terms of where was that. Sorry?
Right, and we still don't know. Look, there's one final thought. Guys,
what do you mean
stop.
still
There's
don't
one
know?
final thought in the last-
You're a second ago you were denying that there was any
How
chemical
can
weapons
you
being
sit
used
in
at all,
London?
and now you're now
final
pretending
thought. I'm going to have to interject or else we'll have to cut you off.
Sit in London and
in the final minute of this programme, I want to ask
How
you...
can you sit in London and determine that?
Guys, please, I want to ask you in the final minute of the programme what the implications would be of an intervention, i.e., Sunny, you were talking earlier on that the thought is this could be a short, sharp intervention, of a rap over the knuckles. How do we know that? How do the people planning this, have they got a clear plan? Are they absolutely sure this won't go on, won't become another Afghanistan, won't become another Iraq? And how do we know it won't spread?
Well,
we've already heard that Iran could be targeting Israel if this happens. I mean, how do we know it's going to be so confined?
No, I mean, let's be clear on a few points. There are no government troops of the British government or the United States government which are going to be landing in Syria at all, not even close. And so the point is they're going to take a few well-aimed shots at Syrian weapons, and that's about it. They can't do anything more than that, and they have said this is not about regime change. So they're not... Can I just make my point, please? You will get your turn. The point is that they are going to focus on very short and sharp. They've said themselves that we're not going to put any ground troops in Syria, and the government in the UK will not support any such action because the statement by the Prime Minister as well as the Labour Party will say we want to limit the action necessary. So let me just be clear: this is not going to be like Afghanistan and Iraq because firstly, there's not going to be any Western troops. Secondly, this is going to go on for a while because Assad is being supported by various countries, including Iran and Russia, and his opposition is being supported by various countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So that proxy war will continue for a while, regardless of whether the United States and the UK are there or going to intervene.
Which is a big difference with Iraq.
Marcus,
well,
a final
I mean,
15 seconds for you in response here, please.
Do you know, Kevin, the sad and regrettable thing is this. People like Sunny and the attitude he espoused, they forget one thing. We're talking about the Syrian people. They've had to endure hell on earth over the last 2 years. And the way that Sunny and Western politicians and journalists talk about attacking a country so flippantly is so distressing. Can you imagine what it must be like to be bombarded with bombs,
You're the one who supported,
with Tomahawk cruise missiles? Sunny, why don't you talk to people that experienced the Blitz in London? Why don't you talk to people that have lived through bombing campaigns? Why don't you talk about the 100,000 people that have been killed by Assad? You have very little time.
Why don't you talk
for the
about the
Syrian?
100,000
You have
people
very little
that have been
time
killed by Assad?
You have very little time for the people. For the
A
Syrian
last
people.
final thought. A
And
last
there's
final
one other
thought
point
with
I'd like
Pavel.
to make as well, Kevin.
Pavel
There's
from the
one other
Russian.
point I'd like to make.
We're going to run out. We've got to get to a break, sir.
Could you imagine what the response would be if Russia was talking openly about attacking another country? There would be uproar in the world. Why is it acceptable for America to talk about attacking another country?
Guys, I'm going to leave a final thought to Pavel, another member of our panel who's sitting here patiently. How is this going to pan out over the next week or so?
It's really hard to put out the timetable because the window of opportunity for actual bombing is very short. What I wanted to finish with is, and then there were like G20, and it's better not to happen on the G20 week, for sure. What I would like to stress here is that there is no goods, no win-wins out of the bombing campaign. It's either would lead to nothing, as it did in 1998 with bombing of Somalia, or it would lead to further deterioration and devastation of the country of Syria, of the nation, and a split out and complete change of the balance, which has been achieved first in Iraq, and now it is being further determined in the balance in the region. It's really when Marcus is talking about geopolitical strategy, I don't see it. The strategy is in complete shambles. There is no foreign policy objectives here. It's just pure senses or stereotypes or some reactions, really.
All right, Pavel, thanks for your time. Pavel Andreev there, Executive Director of the Valdai Club. Also, Marcus Papadopoulos and Sunny Hundell. Thank you both guys as well for your input. It's been most interesting. And of course, Nissa Nawe as well. Nice to see you in the studio as well. Hope you've enjoyed it too.